party.
Welcome again to Power Talks with Santosh. Israel and Middle East have been of great importance and great interest to the media and people all over the world. Today we have a very important guest, His Excellency Mr. Dan Stav, the Ambassador of Israel to Nepal. Tel Aviv and Jerusalem have always had major international newswire and media services. Despite the fact that these newswires carry information, news to the global media, there are about 400 or even more international journalists based in these two cities. As we all know, the news from Israel dominates the cover page, the headlines of the television, the breaking news, and we just can't miss the news from Israel and Middle East almost every other day. Your Excellency, don't you think the media coverage from Israel is a bit overhyped?
I think indeed that the coverage of media of issues related to Israel in the Middle East is very large. And there are very obviously various reasons for that. Israel being a state that hosts sites that are sacred for three different Western religions, the ongoing conflict, the incredible story of the revival of the Jewish people in their ancient ancestral land, and the tough luck of the Palestinians, the mismanagement of their own affair that ended up in a failure to establish their own state. Traditionally, historically, European powers had great interest in this region. Strategically, also during the Cold War, it was a scene of clash between the two superpowers at that time. So it attracts always a lot of media. Adding to that, that Israel is a democratic society and an open one. And for media, it is a paradise because everyone is willing to state what is on its mind. So this is mostly the major reasons for that. But whether it's excessive or not, the media decides its own agenda, not us.
If you see the national newspapers, the national magazines within Israel, it covers more of the attacks that takes place within Israel from outside, from the disputed territories. But when we see the international media like Time, Newsweek, and other, most of the coverage is on the attacks that's done in the Palestine or the conflicted regions. Does that affect the image of your country?
Certainly the media in a global village has an important role. After all, today you cannot do anything in any part of the world without it coming to the attention to the media and becomes the knowledge of each and every individual if he is interested in world affairs. So in this respect, I think the media plays a very important role because it's always there, and you have to remember that you will always be accountable for whatever you do.
Right.
But I think that obviously, I think that the Israeli media is also paying quite a lot of attention. There's also a debate within the media in Israel whether you allot attention enough or not enough to Palestinian issue. But I think by and large, if the Israeli reader wants to know about what is happening in the Palestinian territories, how the people feel there, even during the last military operation in Gaza, I don't think that the Israeli reader has to resort to international media to get the information. And obviously, I think every media anywhere places importance to what happens in your own domain, whether it's Nepal, whether it's India, United States, or UK.
Now, we hear so much about the Middle East conflict. We even hear about the peace process, the peace talks. The UN and from the UN as well. Can you elaborate on the Middle East conflict? It's still very confusing for us.
The Middle East conflict, I think, is confusing for many. I think that the common knowledge about the Middle East conflict is that there is a core issue, which is the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And had you only resolved this conflict, everything would be resolved in the Middle East, and the Middle East will be transformed to a kind of a Shangri-La. And it seems that the reality is much more complex than that. Sadly, since the establishment of the State of Israel, the Arab states around Israel made it a case to use the Palestinian issue in order to weaken Israel and finally to liquidate it from the map. Later, they realized that it will not be possible. Egypt and Jordan signed peace agreements with Israel and put an end to circles of war and to bloodshed that I think left so much agony in both sides. And then I think that what people realized in the Middle East and outside the Middle East, that the conflict is not anymore between Israelis and Arabs, Jews and Muslims, but rather between the moderate camp and the extremist camp. The moderate camp is moderate Arabs, liberals, committed to democracy, to open discussion in society, wants to live in peace, including Israel, and the extremist camp, which composed of the Hamas and the Hezbollah, which are committed to a very extremist interpretation of Islamic radicalism, that want to establish an Islamic empire in all the Middle East, not only on the ruins of Israel. And they are supported by Iran. So I think that the major conflict now has shifted from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict to rather the conflict between moderate and extremists.
And when we talk about the extremists, since 9/11 for last 8 years, we saw a strong war on terror, where Israel played a very important role. Now, in early 2009, we have seen 3 important issues or changes. One is that there has been change in the presidency of the United States. President Barack Obama has just taken his position in the White House. Israel will be having a new government pretty soon, and there has been an economic crisis. Now, if we combine all 3 of this, what effects might you see in your own country?
The election of President Obama to the presidency of the United States is a dramatic historical change, and I think we have not yet realized the full implication of that. I'm sure that as for the relations between United States and Israel, they are strong and sound, and President Obama, as his predecessors, is committed to the security and safety of Israel. Israel has always welcomed the involvement of America in the efforts to achieve peace in the Middle East, and one can recall their involvement in the peace agreement signed between Israel and Egypt, and the attempts to bring peace between Israel and the Palestinians, and also their support for moderate Arab governments that recognize the need to bring peace to the region. So in this regard, I don't see any change. As for the elections of Israel, it's too early to state. A new government is supposed to take place, to be sworn in very soon. The government will be committed to peace like the previous governments. It remains to be seen what kind of agenda exactly it's going to have, how it's going to promote the agenda, how it's going to find the way to achieve peace. But I'm sure that each and every government in Israel, knowing the horrors of war, will prefer peace. As for the economic crisis, it is going to affect the whole world, and obviously Israel is part of it. I think it will affect the budget, and by that there will be a growing competition between various ministries who will get his share and who will have to give up about it. It might also affect the priority, the agenda of Israel. There will be a debate about the defense budget, because it's quite a big chunk of the budget. So it's also going to affect the priority of the government. And I think in this regard, it also in a way can bolster the chance for peace, because everyone knows that continue a conflict and waste so much energy and resources on conflict is a dead end.
Your Excellency, you've been in Nepal for 3.5 years. We'll talk more about it after a short break. We'll see you after a short break.